What if I told you that the story of sushi does not begin in Japan? Well, what if the aromatic dish we call curry did not start its journey in India? These ideas might sound like a wild attempt to rewrite food history. We have grown so accustomed to associating these iconic foods with their famous homelands that any other origin seems impossible. But the history of food is rarely a straight line. It is a tangled, fascinating web, woven by traders, sailors, farmers, cooks. It follows the currents of oceans and the dusty paths of ancient trade routes, picking up new ideas and ingredients along the way. The true origins of many beloved dishes are far more mixed and surprising than we often think. Two of the most powerful examples of this are sushi curry. Long before anyone had ever heard of a California roll or a nigiri platter, a simple and practical idea was taking hold across Southeast Asia. In the hot, humid climates along the Mekong River and other coastal regions, people faced a constant challenge: how to keep fish from spoiling. Fish was an abundant source of protein, but it went bad incredibly quickly. The solution they developed was ingenious and would lay the groundwork for sushi. They began packing fresh, cleaned fish in cooked rice. The rice would begin to ferment, producing lactic acid. This acid acted as a natural preservative, keeping the fish edible for months. This early form of preserved fish was not about creating a delicious rice dish. In fact, the rice used in the fermentation process was often seen as just a tool. After it had done its job of preserving the fish, the sour, mushy rice was typically discarded. The main prize was the fermented fish itself, which had a distinct pungent and sour flavor. As the practice of fermenting fish with rice spread from Southeast Asia, it found fertile ground in neighboring southern China, a region with a long and sophisticated history of rice cultivation. Chinese farmers had been mastering the art of growing rice for millennia, and the grain was central to both their diet and their culture. It was only natural that they would adopt and refine the techniques for using rice in food preservation. Crucially, China also had a tradition of meticulous record-keeping. It is in ancient Chinese texts that we find some of the earliest written descriptions of a food that strongly resembles the original narizushi. These early Chinese records provide invaluable evidence that predates similar documentation in Japan. A dictionary from the 2nd century CE, the Shiming, describes a food called jia, which is defined as fish preserved with rice and salt. The text explains how the rice is used to induce fermentation, resulting in a sour-tasting fish that can be stored for long periods. This description matches the Southeast Asian practice perfectly. The existence of a specific character and definition for this food shows it was a recognized part of China's culinary landscape. This written proof is a critical link in the chain of sushi's history. When the concept of preserving fish in fermented rice finally arrived in Japan, it was still in its original narizushi form, likely around the 8th century. For centuries, the Japanese followed this traditional method. They packed fish in rice and let it ferment for months or even years. The rice was discarded, only the sour fish was consumed. But Japan is where radical changes would occur, driven by a culture valuing efficiency, freshness, aesthetics. Japanese cooks began to experiment, gradually shortening fermentation. A pivotal moment came during the Muromachi period. People started to eat the rice with partially fermented fish. This new style, called nama narizushi, used a much shorter fermentation period. The fish was still relatively fresh, and the rice was pleasantly sour and edible. This was a major departure. Rice was no longer disposable. Rice became an integral part of the meal. That innovation set the stage for the next leap: vinegar to mimic fermentation's sourness without the long wait. The Edo period was the golden age for modern sushi. While the story of sushi was unfolding across East Asia, another culinary revolution was quietly taking shape in the islands of the Philippines. Long before European colonizers or extensive trade with India, indigenous peoples of the archipelago had developed a rich, flavorful cuisine from local resources. At the heart of this cuisine was the coconut. The coconut palm was the tree of life, providing food, drink, oil, building materials. Cooks mastered grating coconut meat, pressing it to extract creamy coconut milk. That milk became the foundation for countless dishes. Filipino cooks used a wide array of local spices and souring agents: ginger, galangal, lemongrass, native aromatic leaves. For a tangy kick, they used calamansi, batuan, tamarind. A creamy base plus aromatic and sour ingredients created a distinct style. The Philippine archipelago was never an isolated chain of islands. For centuries, it was a dynamic and central hub in the vast network of maritime trade that connected China, Southeast Asia, India, the Middle East. Filipino sailors, known for their expert boat building and navigational skills. They were active participants in this exchange. They sailed their balangay boats across the seas, trading goods and, just as importantly, sharing cultural practices, including their methods of cooking, as they traveled to ports in what are now Indonesia, Malaysia, mainland Southeast Asia. They brought their culinary ideas with them. The most significant contribution they carried was their expertise with coconut milk and spice blends. When traders from India and the Arab world introduced turmeric, cumin, coriander, black pepper, cloves, Filipino cooks and their counterparts in neighboring ports were quick to incorporate these exciting new flavors into their existing coconut milk-based recipes. This process of exchange was a two-way street. Filipino traders not only adopted new spices, but also likely introduced their own cooking styles to other cultures. The story of curry is not the story of a single dish, but of an idea that traveled the world and took on a new identity in every place it landed. While India is famous for its diverse spice blends, the concept of a spiced, saucy stew has many ancestors. The Filipino tradition of ginataan represents one of these early forms. The Indian subcontinent independently developed complex stewed dishes. When maritime trade routes connected these worlds, a powerful culinary synthesis accelerated the evolution of curry. Indian traders spread spices like turmeric, black pepper across Southeast Asia, and their techniques influenced regional cooking. But influence flowed both ways. Coconut milk is far more prevalent in southern India, Sri Lanka coastal regions linked to Southeast Asia, whereas northern India favors dairy, yogurt, cream. This suggests a significant exchange of ideas. Southeast Asian and Filipino coconut milk affinity traveled west while Indian spices moved east. A cross-pollination created a curry belt stretching from India through Southeast Asia. In Thailand, the idea became red curry, green curry, yellow curry. When we place these histories side by side, the conventional food map begins to look different. The simple lines that connect sushi exclusively to Japan and curry exclusively to India dissolve, replaced by a more complex and interconnected web. China and the Philippines emerge from the background, not as peripheral players, but as central hubs of innovation and transmission. Southern China, with its advanced rice agriculture and established trade links with Southeast Asia, acted as a crucial bridge, documenting and disseminating the fish preservation techniques that form the basis of sushi. It was a conduit for knowledge, carrying an idea northward. The Philippine archipelago, situated at the geographic and commercial heart of the maritime spice routes, served a similar role for curry. Its indigenous tradition of coconut milk-based cooking provided a ready-made framework for the new spices arriving from the West. The journey into the true origins of sushi and curry rewrites more than just a recipe book. It redraws the map of our culinary world. The simple, satisfying narrative that ties sushi to Japan and curry to India is incomplete. The real story is a grander, more inclusive saga of human connection. It reminds us that no dish is an island. The foundations of sushi were laid not in Edo, but in the ancient fishing villages of Southeast Asia and codified in the texts of China. The conceptual blueprint for curry was simmering in the clay pots of the Philippines long before the name for it ever existed. This richer history teaches us a profound lesson in humility. It encourages us to question simple origin stories and to appreciate the complex layers of influence that create the foods we love. Japan's transformation of a preservation method into a culinary art form is a testament to its cultural genius. India's mastery of spice blending created a universe of flavor that is unparalleled. Acknowledging the earlier contributions of Southeast Asia, China, and the Philippines does not diminish these achievements. On the contrary, it places them within a larger, more magnificent context of shared human ingenuity, a story of borrowing, adapting, and perfecting. Every bite of food we eat is a taste of history, a travel record of ideas that have journeyed across oceans and continents. The next time you enjoy a piece of perfectly formed nigiri, think of the ancient fishermen of the Mekong, packing their catch in rice to survive. When you savor the complex, aromatic warmth of a curry, imagine Filipino sailors trading spices in a bustling port, combining new flavors with their traditional coconut milk stews. These foods are not just delicious, they are living artifacts, edible monuments to the centuries of trade migration and cultural exchange that have shaped our world. In the end, this exploration leaves us with a sense of wonder. It reveals a past that is far more connected and collaborative than we often imagine. The true origins of our favorite foods are often shared, crisscrossing the globe in a beautiful, tangled web. Sushi and curry are stunning examples of this principle. They are testaments to the fact that the greatest innovations often happen at the crossroads of culture. By recognizing the foundational roles of China and the Philippines, we do not lose a national treasure. We gain a deeper appreciation for a truly global and profoundly human story.